It was a cold and rainy afternoon in late August. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and the air felt damp. Inside Lady Blumley's grand house, a group of well-dressed guests sat around her elegant tea table, sipping warm tea and listening to Mr. Cornelius Appin. He was an unusual man, known for his wild ideas, and on this particular day, he claimed to have made a groundbreaking discovery, something greater than gunpowder, the printing press, or even steam power. Sir Wilfrid, one of the guests, raised an eyebrow and asked, "Are you really expecting us to believe that you have discovered a way to teach animals to speak like humans? And that our dear old cat Tobermory is your first successful student?" Mr. Appin nodded confidently. "Yes, indeed. I have been working on this project for the last 17 years. Only in the last 8 or 9 months have I achieved real success. I have conducted experiments on thousands of animals, but lately, I have focused only on cats. They are intelligent creatures, capable of adapting to human society, while still keeping their natural instincts. When I first met Tobermory, I recognized his extraordinary intelligence. With him, I have finally reached my goal." The guests exchanged glances, unsure whether to believe him. Clovis, a young man with a mischievous sense of humor, silently mouthed the word rubbish. But Miss Rusker, another guest, leaned forward and asked, "Do you mean that you have taught Tobermory to say simple words and understand basic sentences?" Mr. Appin shook his head. "Dear Miss Rusker, we teach small children and simple-minded individuals in that manner. No, Tobermory can speak our language fluently. He understands and responds just as a well-educated human would." Clovis chuckled. "That's nonsense." Sir Wilfrid, though more polite, was just as doubtful. "Perhaps we should bring the cat here and see for ourselves if your claim is true," suggested Lady Blumley. Sir Wilfrid stood up and left the room, returning shortly with a pale face and wide eyes. "Oh my goodness! It's true!" he gasped, his voice filled with disbelief. The guests sat up in their chairs, their curiosity and excitement growing. "What happened?" someone asked. "I found Tobermory sleeping in the smoking room," Sir Wilfrid explained. "I called out to him, inviting him for tea, and to my utter shock, he replied in a perfectly clear voice." At that moment, Tobermory strolled into the room with his tail high in the air. His green eyes surveyed the gathering, before he walked over to the tea table. "Would you like some milk, Tobermory?" Lady Blumley asked, her voice shaking slightly. "I don't mind if I do," Tobermory replied indifferently. The room fell into stunned silence. Lady Blumley quickly poured some milk into a saucer, though her hands trembled, and she spilled a few drops. "Oh dear, I'm afraid I spilled some," she murmured apologetically. Tobermory flicked his tail. "It's not my carpet," he remarked dryly. The guests sat in complete amazement. Miss Rusker, still fascinated, asked, "Was it difficult for you to learn human language?" Tobermory stared at her for a moment, as if deciding whether the question was worth answering. Finally he responded, "That is a foolish question." Mavis Pellington, another guest, giggled nervously. "What do you think of human intelligence, Tobermory?" she asked. "Whose intelligence are we talking about?" Tobermory responded coldly. "Oh well, mine for example," she said with a forced laugh. "That puts me in an uncomfortable position," Tobermory said, though there was no hesitation in his voice. "Sir Wilfrid did not want you invited here. He called you the most foolish woman he knows." Gasps filled the room. Lady Blumley's face turned red as she recalled that earlier in the day, she had convinced Mavis to buy her old car, assuring her it was in perfect condition. Major Barfield quickly changed the topic. "How are you getting along with that brown cat from the stables?" he asked. The guests immediately realized his mistake. Tobermory narrowed his eyes. "One does not usually discuss such matters in public. And judging from what I've seen in this house, I think you wouldn't want me to discuss your personal affairs either." A tense silence spread through the room. Everyone, not just the Major, felt anxious. Would you like to check if the cook has prepared your dinner?" Lady Blumley asked, trying to distract the cat. Tobermory flicked his tail again. "No, thank you. It's too soon after my tea. I have no desire to suffer from indigestion." "Cats have 9 lives, you know," Sir Wilfrid said, trying to lighten the mood. "Possibly," Tobermory replied, "but only 1 liver." Now the guests truly began to panic. "Don't let that cat leave the house," Mrs. Cornett cried. "If he tells people what he knows, we'll all be ruined." Tobermory had always wandered freely through the house, including the guests' bedrooms. Now, everyone realized how dangerous that was. "Why did I even come here?" Miss Resker muttered. Tobermory answered immediately. "Yesterday you told Mrs. Cornett that the Blemleys were the dullest people you knew, but they had an excellent cook." "That's not true," Miss Resker protested. "Mrs. Cornett repeated your words to Bertie Van Ton," Tobermory continued. "And he said, that woman would go anywhere for 4 meals a day." Just then, Tobermory noticed a large yellow tomcat from the rectory passing by the window. Without another word, he slipped through the open door and disappeared outside. The guests turned toward Mr. Appin in fury. "You started this. Now you must fix it," Mrs. Cornett declared. "Can Tobermory teach other cats to speak?" "It's possible," Mr. Appin admitted. "Maybe he has started teaching the stable cat, but it would take time for her to learn much." "Then we must act quickly," Sir Wilfrid exclaimed. "We need to get rid of Tobermory and the stable cat at once." "But he's our pet," Lady Blemley protested. "Not anymore. We can poison his food," Sir Wilfrid suggested grimly. "I'll deal with the stable cat myself. We'll tell its owner that the animals were sick, and we had to prevent an outbreak." "What about my years of research?" Mr. Appin cried. "Go experiment on elephants," Mrs. Cornett snapped. "At least they don't sneak into our bedrooms." Dinner that evening was tense. Everyone was anxious, expecting Tobermory to return. A plate of food was left for him, but he did not appear. At midnight, Lady Blemley checked the pantry, only to return each time looking more worried. In the morning, the gardener found Tobermory's lifeless body in the bushes. He had fought the tomcat from the rectory, and the bigger cat had won. By noon, most of the guests had left. Lady Blemley wrote an angry letter to the rectory, blaming them for the loss of her valuable pet. Weeks later, a story appeared in the newspapers. An elephant had escaped from the Dresden Zoo and killed an Englishman. The victim's name was listed as Cornelius, though the last name varied between reports. Clovis smirked. "I'm not surprised. If he was trying to teach the poor elephant German grammar, he got what he deserved."